In the Appalachian woods, some voices don't belong to the living, and when the whistling follows you, it means you've already been chosen. The Appalachian Mountains are more than just ancient hills. They are haunted ground, a place where stories linger like mist, and every shadow hides a creepy tale whispered through generations. This first story is about the Whistler in the Pines, a dark myth that has stalked hunters, campers, and even entire families for centuries. In 1997, a man named Samuel Briggs set out to camp deep within the Appalachian backwoods near North Carolina. He was a seasoned outdoorsman, confident that nothing in the forest could scare him. But the Appalachians have a way of breaking even the toughest men. Samuel kept a journal during his trip, later found near the ruins of his camp. His first entries were mundane, about fishing, the crisp air, the sound of owls. But then the tone shifted. Something's out there. Last night I heard whistling, slow, steady, like someone breathing a tune into the trees. But when I shouted, no one answered. On the second night, the whistling grew closer. It circled his camp, never hurried, never panicked, just patient. He described it as a tune that wasn't human, rising and falling in notes no normal whistle could produce. The forest grew wrong. Animals vanished. No crickets, no frogs, just silence and the whistle. By the third night, Samuel wrote that the sound came from directly behind his tent. When he opened the flap, the woods were empty. But in the dirt outside, he found footprints, bare, elongated, and too deep for any human. His final entry was smeared, written in a shaky hand. The whistling won't stop. It's inside the trees. I saw it tonight, long arms, no face, standing where the moonlight doesn't reach. It wants me to follow. Samuel Briggs was never seen again. His camp was found torn apart, his belongings scattered, and his journal buried beneath pine needles, as if the forest itself tried to hide it. Locals say that if you ever hear whistling in the Appalachian woods, don't whistle back, because if you do, the whistler knows your name. To this day, hikers in the Appalachian trails report eerie whistles that echo through the pines. Some laugh it off as wind, but others never come home. The Whistler in the Pines remains one of the most disturbing real horror legends of the Appalachian deep woods. In Black Hollow, when a lantern flickers where no hands hold it, someone will vanish before sunrise. The Appalachian Mountains are soaked in tales of ghosts, curses, and haunted folklore. Some are dismissed as campfire stories, but others cling to the soil like blood. Black Hollow, a ravine hidden deep in West Virginia, carries one of the most disturbing horror legends, the Lantern Man. For generations, families have whispered that when night falls and the fog curls low, a glowing lantern drifts through the trees. Follow it, and you'll never be seen again. 1. Origins of the legend. The story begins in the 1800s with a miner named Elias Crowder.
Known for his greed, Elias used to smuggle coal out of the mines and sell it for profit. One night, after a collapse killed several workers, Elias abandoned his crew to die in the dark. When rescuers arrived, they found the bodies, but not Elias. All they recovered was his cracked lantern, still burning. Locals believed his soul was cursed, doomed to wander Black Hollow carrying that same lantern, forever luring others into the dark as punishment. By the early 1900s, dozens of disappearances were tied to the Lantern Man. Witnesses spoke of a swaying light in the woods, bobbing gently like someone carrying it. But when approached, the figure holding it would vanish, leaving only the glow, and those who followed, gone. 2. The 1963 Encounter. In November 1963, a group of teenagers from a nearby town dared each other to camp in Black Hollow. Among them was Mary Fletcher, who later became the only surviving witness. According to her testimony, the night was bone cold, the kind that gnaws at your teeth. Around midnight, a pale yellow light appeared between the trees, drifting smoothly like a lantern on an invisible hand. The boys laughed, claiming it was a prank. They followed. Mary begged them not to, but their laughter turned to silence as they disappeared into the fog. Hours later, Mary stumbled out of the woods alone, hysterical, babbling about how her friends walked into the lantern and never came back. The boys were never found. Search parties scoured the hollow, but there were no footprints, no bodies, nothing but damp soil and the smell of burnt oil. 3. Modern-day horror. The Hiker's Journal. In 2011, a hiker named Thomas Avery vanished in the same ravine. Weeks later, rangers found his journal sealed in a waterproof bag beneath a fallen log. The entries grew progressively unhinged. Night 1. Fog so thick, feels alive. Thought I saw a light ahead, but no one else is out here. Night 2. The lantern came again. Yellow glow between trees. No sound, no footsteps, just swaying, waiting. It wants me to follow. Night 3. I heard voices inside the light. They sounded like the miners. They begged me for help. But when I moved closer, I saw their faces. Burned. Hollow. Night 4. I think I'm losing time. Woke up with black soot on my hands like I've been digging. Night 5. The lantern is inside the tent. I can't escape. If anyone finds this, don't follow it. Don't look at it. Don't listen to it. The final page was torn, the ink smeared into a black blotch. Thomas Avery was never found. 4. Local belief and cursed rituals. Folklore experts believe the Lantern Man is more than a ghost. Some say it's a cursed ritual fueled by Elias Crowder's betrayal. According to old miners' wives, the lantern carries a soul trap. Once you step into its light, your spirit is bound, feeding the curse. Others whisper it's a warning. The mountains remember blood spilled in greed, and anyone who mocks the dead will join them. Today, hikers still report strange lights in Black Hollow. Park officials claim it's swamp gas or reflections from distant roads. But locals know better. The Lantern Man is still there, his cursed flames swaying through the Appalachian dark, waiting for the next soul foolish enough to follow.
When you hear whistling in the Appalachians at night, don't answer back.
because what whistles isn't human. The Appalachian Mountains hold hundreds of scary legends, stories of haunted woods, cursed rituals, and restless spirits. But high on Devil's Ridge, where the wind howls like a dying breath, there is a darker myth locals whisper with trembling lips: the Bone Whistler. For generations, hunters and travelers vanished along the ridge. Their bones were often discovered months later, stripped clean, stacked into strange patterns, and sometimes carved with holes that, when the wind passed, emitted a chilling whistle. No one knows if it is ghost, demon, or cursed man, but one rule is repeated in every household nearby: if you hear whistling in the woods, do not answer back. 1. Origins of the Whistler. The tale begins in the late 1700s with a trapper named Samuel Harker. Samuel was cruel, even by frontier standards. He hunted not for food, but for sport, leaving carcasses rotting in the woods. One winter, he killed a Lenape boy for trespassing. The tribe captured him, and according to legend, cursed him with a ritual older than the mountains. They carved holes into his bones so that the wind itself would forever carry his sins. When they left his body on the ridge, the next morning it was gone. But at night, a whistle rose with the storm, low, hollow, and inhuman. Soon after, people began disappearing. 2. The 1921 miners' tragedy. In 1921, a crew of coal miners attempted to cut through Devil's Ridge to build a shortcut rail line. The project ended in disaster. Workers reported hearing whistling during their shifts, soft at first, then shrill, almost mocking. One by one, men began vanishing. Their lunch pails, pickaxes, and coats were left neatly stacked, but the men themselves were gone. After the fifth disappearance, the project was abandoned. A year later, hikers stumbled on a cave near the site. Inside, they found piles of bones arranged like an orchestra, skulls tilted back as if singing, ribs aligned into the shape of flutes, and femurs hollowed to make whistles. The cave was sealed by authorities, but locals claim the whistling still drifts from the ridge every winter. 3. The Whistling Challenge, 1978. By the late 1970s, urban legends about the Bone Whistler became a dare among teenagers. In 1978, 4 friends from Charleston decided to prove it was nonsense. They camped overnight on Devil's Ridge, carrying tape recorders to capture the ghostly whistle. Their surviving tape remains one of the most terrifying pieces of Appalachian folklore. At first, only the crackle of the fire and laughter of the teens can be heard. Then, at 1:37 a.m., a faint whistle emerges, 4 rising notes, like someone calling a bird. The teens respond by whistling back. The reply is immediate, louder, closer. Panic sets in on the tape. The boys shout, arguing, footsteps crunching. Then comes a scream, cut short by a wet, tearing sound. The tape ends with a single sound, whistling, steady and mocking, until silence swallows it. The boys were never found. Only their tent remained, shredded open, with 3 human femurs standing upright in the dirt, like candles. 4. The Ranger's Report, 1999. In 1999, Ranger Linda Grayson investigated reports of strange sounds on Devil's Ridge. Her official incident report was filed, but never released to the public. A leaked copy tells a chilling story. 11:48 p.m., heard whistling. Thought it was wind. Pattern too regular. 4 notes repeated. Echo carried strangely, as if circling us. 12:15 a.m., found small clearing. Bones arranged in spiral pattern. Fresh, not animal remains. Human. 12:22 a.m., partner began to whistle nervously. Immediate reply came from surrounding woods, louder. Too many sources, couldn't pinpoint direction. 12:30 a.m., something moved between the trees, tall, thin, crooked, could see ribs glowing white in the moonlight. It carried bones in its hands, shaking them like instruments. The final lines of her report were smeared in ink, but one phrase is still visible. The whistle came from inside my head. Ranger Grayson resigned weeks later, refusing to speak publicly about Devil's Ridge. 5. Modern folklore. The bone ritual. Locals say the bone whistler is neither alive nor dead. It feeds on voices. To answer its whistle is to invite it inside your lungs, your throat, your bones. Some folklorists believe it collects bones to craft a symphony, building toward a cursed ritual that will one day unleash a greater horror. Others think it is Samuel Harker himself, still cursed, condemned to kill endlessly in the ridge. But among hunters, one superstition remains strongest. When camping in the Appalachians, if you hear whistling, plug your ears. Do not answer, not even once. Devil's Ridge remains untouched by hikers today. Rangers mark it unstable terrain, but locals know the truth. They won't set foot there after dusk. The bone whistler waits for another foolish soul to answer his tune, to add another instrument to his orchestra of bones. So if you ever wander the Appalachian woods at night, and you hear 4 notes carried by the wind, remember this story. And for the sake of your soul, do not whistle back. In the dark valleys of Appalachia, children sometimes laugh where no children live. Follow the laughter, and you'll never come back whole. Appalachia has always been a cradle of haunted folklore, where dark myths linger in every hollow and ridge. Some speak of curses, others of restless spirits. But in Ash Valley, West Virginia, a tale exists that is so disturbing locals won't even whisper it at night. The Hollow Children. They say they are not ghosts in the usual sense, nor demons in the usual form, but something in between. Born from grief, ritual, and sacrifice, the Hollow Children wander the woods, appearing as pale, silent figures of lost boys and girls. But if you look closer, you'll see their eyes are not eyes at all, only deep holes that seem to swallow the light. 1. The Orphan Fire of 1892. The origins trace back to 1892, when a small orphanage stood in Ash Valley, run by a cruel matron, Abigail Moore. According to town records, a fire consumed the building one December night. 12 children perished, their bodies never fully recovered. The townsfolk whispered that Abigail locked them inside after one child claimed to hear voices in the walls. She perished too, but the children's souls were never found. Afterward, hunters began reporting strange sightings, small figures at the edge of the tree line, giggling softly, running deeper into the woods. At night, the laughter echoed through the hollow, followed by silence, then screams. 2. The Hollow Ritual. Folklore. Local legend insists the children weren't simply victims. Some believe Abigail performed a cursed ritual meant to bind their spirits, using their innocence to fuel her own immortality. The ritual required carving hollow marks into the walls, strange circular symbols that resembled empty eyes. Survivors claim to see them burned into the wood after the fire. The hollow children, they say, are the result, husks of souls, bound by fire and grief, wandering endlessly through the valley. 3. The Farmer's Tale, 1937. In 1937, farmer Clyde Wilkins reported terrifying events while tending his land near Ash Valley. His diary, found years later in a rotting trunk, details his encounters. The children come at night. First I hear the laughter, soft as wind through dry grass. Then the shadows appear, small, pale faces looking in through the window. No eyes, only holes, black as coal. I made the mistake of opening the door. They scattered like smoke, but one stayed. Its mouth stretched too wide when it smiled, and it whispered, "Play with us." I ain't slept since. The animals won't go near the woods. The barn burned last night with no flame, only sound of children singing. Weeks later, Clyde vanished. His house stood abandoned, the windows marked with the same hollow eye symbols from the orphanage fire. 4. The Laughter in the Recording, 1965. In 1965, a folklorist named Richard Holloway brought a reel-to-reel recorder to Ash Valley, determined to capture evidence of the legend. His recording is still studied by paranormal researchers. It begins with rustling leaves, wind, and Holloway's voice describing the woods. Then, faintly, the sound of laughter emerges, high-pitched, childlike, overlapping. He whispers, "I see them. Dear God, I see them." The laughter grows louder, circling him, echoing unnaturally. Suddenly, a child's voice whispers directly into the microphone, "Stay forever." The tape ends abruptly with Holloway's scream. His body was never found, only the recorder was recovered, lying in a circle of 12 tiny footprints burned into the soil. 5. The Disappearance of Camp Ash, 1989. One of the darkest incidents tied to the Hollow children occurred in 1989 when a church group set up a summer camp in Ash Valley. On the third night, the children began reporting new friends visiting the edge of camp, pale kids who invited them to play in the woods. The counselors dismissed it as imagination. But by dawn, 6 campers were missing. Searchers found small trails of ash leading into the forest, ending abruptly in scorched earth. Weeks later, hikers discovered the missing campers' shoes lined neatly in a row on a ridge, surrounded by hollow eye symbols carved into trees. The children were never found. 6. The folklorist's theory. Hollow hosts. Modern researchers argue the Hollow children are not merely ghosts, but hosts, vessels that lure the living to join them. They do not kill outright. Instead, they steal pieces. Victims are found dazed, their eyes clouded, their laughter broken. Some wander for days, repeating phrases in children's voices. Others are never found at all. Folklore suggests that when the hollow children approach, they first mimic the lost voices of loved ones. If you answer, you are marked. That night, laughter will follow you until you vanish. Today, Ash Valley is abandoned. Locals refuse to farm there, and officials list it as unsafe terrain. But ghost hunters still sneak in, leaving behind footage filled with distorted laughter, fleeting shadows, and hollow symbols carved into bark. The truth remains uncertain. Were the Abigail's children cursed souls, victims of ritual, or something far older wearing their faces? One thing is certain. If you walk Ash Valley after dark and hear children laughing where no children live, run, because once they notice you, they'll never let you go. When the mountains sing at midnight, don't listen, because the voices aren't human. They're calling for blood. Among the haunted folklore of Appalachia, none is as terrifying or as forbidden as the story whispered about Raven's Gorge, a remote ravine in Kentucky. Locals warn travelers never to camp there, never to stay past dusk. They say that at midnight, voices rise from the gorge, weaving together like a hymn. But it is not a hymn of faith. It is a cursed ritual, a choir of the dead, demanding new voices to join. The legend is known as the Blood Choir. 1. The Lost Parish of 1847. The first recorded mention of the Blood Choir comes from 1847, when a small church parish built a chapel on the cliffs of Raven's Gorge. The congregation, made of settlers, claimed the gorge's acoustics amplified their hymns like angels singing. But within a year, the entire parish disappeared. When other settlers investigated, they found the church doors flung wide, hymnals scattered across the pews. No blood, no bodies, only echoes of voices still singing, though the church was empty. The chapel burned weeks later in a lightning storm. Witnesses claimed the flames roared in the shape of screaming faces. 2. The Traveler's Journal, 1902. In 1902, a traveler named Margaret Hale passed through Raven's Gorge and documented her night there. Her journal, recovered decades later, details horrors that match the legend. At first, the night was calm, though the wind carried an odd hum. By 11, it became voices, low, melodic, chanting in harmony. I thought it a choir practicing in the valley, but no light shone, no campfire burned. By midnight, the hymn grew unbearable, filling my chest with pain. I felt compelled to sing. My lips moved without my will. When I covered my mouth, the voices laughed. I fled at dawn, but even miles away, I still heard them, inside my head, inside my bones. I fear they will call me back. Margaret vanished the following year. Her journal was found in an abandoned churchyard miles from the gorge. 3. The 1933 mass disappearance. In 1933, a search party of 12 entered Raven's Gorge looking for missing hunters. They camped overnight. None returned. When a second team investigated, they found 12 sets of boots arranged in a perfect circle around the campfire. Each pair pointed inward. There were no footprints leaving the site. Strangest of all, the gorge echoed with faint hymns when the wind blew. Witnesses swore the voices matched the missing men, calling in harmony, "Come join us, sing with us." 4. The Ranger's Confession, 1972. Ranger Harold Green broke his silence in 1972 after years of guarding the gorge. His taped confession, released posthumously, still circulates among paranormal investigators. "I've heard them too, many times, always at midnight. The songs start soft, like prayer, then build until the earth shakes. They don't sing in words, they sing in hunger. I've seen them, figures made of ash and blood, mouths open wider than human jaws, voices tearing from holes in their throats. They want others to join, and when you do, your body dies, but your voice lives forever in the choir." He ended with one chilling warning: "If you hear them, cover your ears. If you feel the urge to sing, it's already too late." 5. The Last Campers, 2005. In 2005, 4 college students recorded their camping trip to Raven's Gorge. Only fragments of their camcorder footage survived, recovered from the wreck of their abandoned tent. The video begins with laughter, drinks, and ghost stories. By 11:45 p.m., one student says, "Do you guys hear that? Like church singing." The group argues. Some hear it, some don't. By midnight, the camera shakes violently, capturing shadows flickering along the gorge walls, like a crowd standing shoulder to shoulder singing. The last clear shot is of one student, her face slack, her mouth open, singing in perfect harmony with unseen voices. Blood streams from her eyes and ears as she continues, smiling. The tape ends in static. The students were never found. 6. Folklore analysis, the blood ritual. Scholars of Appalachian folklore say the blood choir is not simply a haunting, but a ritualistic curse. They theorize the original parish performed forbidden rites, offering their voices in exchange for eternal presence. The gorge acts as a vessel, an amplifier. Each new victim strengthens the choir, making the hymn louder, more irresistible. Some believe the choir is building toward a final crescendo, a song powerful enough to tear the veil between worlds. Today, Raven's Gorge is fenced off, marked as unstable terrain. But locals know the truth. They avoid it, crossing themselves at the mention of its name. For those who wander too close, the warning is simple. If you hear hymns in the Appalachian night, run. Because if you listen too long, your voice will never belong to you again. It will belong to the blood choir. If you hear children laughing in the woods, whistling in the dark, or hymns rising at midnight, remember these tales, and remember, not all voices in Appalachia are human. Subscribe for more terrifying stories. Like the video if you survived the blood choir. And in the comments, tell us what dark legend you want us to uncover next.